Welcome to MSP Unplugged. I'm your host, Paco Lebron. This is the place to learn how to run your MSP, whether you're a nimble MSP or leading a team for the journey. This is the place for you. Let me go ahead and introduce you all to my co-hosts. Say that 3 times fast. We have Mr. Rick Smith over at Renactus Technology. Rick, how are you, my friend?
I'm in New Jersey. It's absolutely freezing the second week of January, but other than that, life's good. Life's good.
I hear that. It's our first snowfall today, so it's been a lot of slipping and sliding and flat tires and trying to get unfrozen of things that are frozen into the ground. It was a great morning for us over here today, so I'm with you on that one. Mr. Corey Kirkendoll over at 5K Technical Services. My friend, how's the weather going on over there?
Man, I think Rick opened it up and let it come slip down here, bro. So we got to talk about that later. So we got snow. We've been down, in Texas, man, we don't get snow a lot. So, I mean, we're not prepared for that stuff. So everything is shut down, right? No bread, no water, no milk, no nothing. No service, no DoorDash, no nothing. If you ain't got it, you ain't getting it, right? So, but all good, man. All good.
They put a sign on the station, we closed.
Don't know what to do with themselves over there. But yeah, no, I think it's been an interesting week for what we've had. You all will be listening to this on Tuesday. But we're going to go ahead and start off with our tip, trick, or story. I will kick it off and go ahead and give off a tip. I'm actually borrowing this from our very own Diana Giles, who posted in the MSP community group. So if you're not a part of the MSP Unplugged community group, find someone who's in the group who can vet you, invite you, and they'll let you right in. But she had shared something that I've been playing around with, and that is Clarity by Microsoft. So clarity.microsoft.com. It's a tool, from what I can tell, is free, but it actually provides you a lot of great insights to the use of your website. So it's pretty much kind of similar to like a Pixel or some type of monitoring software, but it will actually provide you things like a heat map. It'll provide you the ability to see live sessions and how the navigation has been going, along with some insights and integrating Google Analytics as well as kind of a dashboard to understand, how to optimize your website as much as possible. So we're currently in the process of rebranding our website, redoing all that sort of deal. We got a lot of stuff coming up digitally. We got a bunch of webinars. My first webinar for the MSP is coming up at the end of the month. So things are running pretty fast. And so we are trying to do what we can with all the digital assets that we got. So shout out to Diana for sharing that quick tip that we can share for this week's episode on the podcast. So I'll go ahead and toss it over to Corey. Corey, you got a tip, trick, or story that you got for this week?
Yeah, man. So one of the things I use heavily, man, is Google Alerts. If you haven't used them, right? We can go out to Google search and say, hey, I want to be kept abreast of data breaches in Texas for lawyers or whatever I want. And anytime that Google goes out there and sees that, it delivers up, whether it's daily or weekly, into your mailbox. Here's the topics that you were looking for, no matter what that looks like. It just gives you an opportunity to quickly glance and stay up abreast of the information that you can spend some time with your customers and things from that perspective. What I love about it, if you go out there and do that and set it up for your verticals, it's a great way to stay abreast of what's happening with them and saying, hey, what's happening for data breaches in construction management? What's data breaches in legal? What's happening in today in the state of Texas for CPAs? And you always got something live to kind of get them up and kind of keeps you abreast of when you're having conversations. That one makes it feel like you're staying abreast and atop of all of the topics that's going on in their industry, but also helps you protect some things that you may not even be aware of what's outside of the tech side. It says, hey, here's what's happening to a certain application or a certain industry that's meaningful to your customer. So it's an opportunity for you to stay knowledgeable and to bring some value add back to your customer as well, man. So Google Alerts, very easy, it's free, set it up, keeps you posted. And not just for business, but if there's things that you like as well about cars and anything, I mean, you get an alert from that perspective from Google.
Yeah, it's a good opportunity too, because for example, if you want to make sure you're up to date about anyone talking about your business or maybe your own name, you have the ability to set those alerts up so you can take a look and, if there's great things going on out there that mention you, great. If there's some bad stuff being mentioned to you out there, you can get ahead of it and take a look and see what's going on as well. So yeah, Google Alerts, that's a great tip for this week as well. Mr. Smith, what do you got for this week?
I'm going to give a quick one and say this. Cleanliness or neatness is next to customer satisfaction, equals customer satisfaction. I was going to tell a quick story that happened this week. Had a guy, one of my medical clients, he had a guy come in, they put in a TV that just, gives whatever their medical stuff is. So he basically put up this TV on the wall and loaded the USB in to run this continuous program that runs, talking about whatever service. I can't even remember what the service is, but I wasn't there. They called, they needed the Wi-Fi password to connect the TV to the service, right? So I gave it. The guy went in and he made this comment to me when I talked to him on the phone. He's like, "Hey, you have the neatest and cleanest room, like server room, that I've seen for most of the places I go." He said, "Most of them are a disaster." He said, and I told the doctor, he said, and I told him that, that you do a good job of maintaining this. I just wanted to, give you kudos on that. And I say, "Hey, thanks." And I hadn't thought about it, but what was more impressive was that when I went back to the client the next day, I went to see the client on something totally unrelated, and I didn't even think about it. And he said, "Hey, the guy is really impressed with your work." He said he may even, when he talks to other people, he'll give them your name. He asked me for your information, that he probably will give them your name. So I just will say, I do try to take pride. I do have some that are getting out of whack, but my suggestion to everyone is, if you have server rooms or rooms that, that you basically work out of, or that the equipment room, let's call it, because I know a lot of you now don't do servers on in-house, but whatever that equipment room is, or quote unquote server room is, try to keep it neat, keep it, tidy, make sure your cabling looks nice and neat, because you never know who will look at that, and you'll never know, you never know what that can get you going forward.
Yeah, no, I think Corey got something to say over there because he's on mute.
Yeah, I love to chime in. I always tell people that you can tell the type of IT support and what you're getting based off what the server room looks like and where it comes from. And what's cool about that is, because what we do is not tangible, right? They really can't see a lot of the stuff, but that's the one place that people can actually see the value that you bring, is what's happening in that closet, right? And it's huge. So definitely, man, throw some LEDs. Actually, I would even recommend you to put some blank racks in there and actually put your logo and name on the rack, right? Because you don't never know who's in there, as well as let them know, hey, this is ran by me.
That's an awesome idea. Yeah.
I'm proud of this thing, right? And so that's what's up. But yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, get some vinyl stickers, slap that bad boy on there.
Yep.
Right. Yeah, that's a great suggestion. I like that. And I think it just goes back to, standardization, right? It helps with a lot of just showing where your mind is at, like Corey said, right? Like Corey, we talked about it right before the show, is like you have a color code on what you run for your things, right? Like what's the connection from the MDM to the, I use our acronyms, from the circuit to the UTM or router, from there to the switch, and then kind of just running through everything from there. I know Joe K from Cyber Onsite Services, he color codes his cabling from the type of things that it's connected to. So the phone systems are a certain color, the cameras are a certain color, the networking devices are a different color. So, being able to pre-plan that, right? And that's kind of where I'm going back to, is like preparation will always provide you the success that you want versus just kind of walking into it. And sometimes you can't do it all in one shot, right? And so this is probably a piece together thing where you plan yourself for this project. But again, that's the value you're providing to your clients. And when you get to show them that that's what you respect them as much as you respect your own business, they're going to see that, and it's going to go a long way. So that's definitely awesome to hear, kind of going from there. But, from going from there, sometimes, things aren't as great as they should be, right? And sometimes you got to make some hard decisions, whether that's multiple reasons. Your business is growing, unfavorable relationships have gone sour, or a new technology or solution just makes more sense to adopt versus what you were currently doing. So what am I talking about? I'm talking. Please remain on the line. We got some inside folks then going on there, but I think for us, we're talking about breaking up with your vendor and a guide to better partnerships. And switching is never easy, right? And there are some that will adopt a new tool and switch to a new thing every month, every week, every year. Just depends on their style and how they're doing things. But sometimes you like to keep things a little stable, and you want to make sure you mature and not look at the dollars, but look at the partnerships and relationships that you build. Um, this year, so last year we spent a lot of time trying to prep and figure out what we're going to do for 2025. And this year, there is essentially 5, I want to say pillars, but things that we're following this year for 2025 that me and my good friend John Dubinsky, who is our ops manager here over at ProdigyTeks, who used to be formerly of the Maven Group. And these 5 specifically, because I have it here in my phone to read exactly of what it is. And the first one is make requirements less dumb. Second one is going to be delete the part or process step to get less steps. Optimize, accelerate, and automate. So that's kind of what our goal has been for this past year. And the first stop is, how are our processes and what are we doing to make requirements less dumb? And not unfortunately, but a lot of these include a lot of the vendor relationships that we have as well, whether that is a VoIP system, whether that is a PSA, whether that is a security tool. These are things that we are now kind of reviewing and understanding, hey, what's the best way for us to do? I think I've mentioned this for a little bit ago, and, our dissatisfaction with our networking vendor. And so, I had thought that I knew the brand that we were going to be moving toward because of, I will say it here on the air, biases that I had for a particular brand. And, my good friend who I've known for, how long have we known each other, Rick? 8 years now, since 2017?
Yeah, like eight years, somewhere in that area.
And so, and from all that time of, we run Unify, we run Ubiquity, and probably 80% of our entire community runs Unify and Ubiquity. And, I would always greet the whole, yeah. Okay, cool. You got Unify. Love that for you. Because we were with Overseer, it was simple, a lot of things come. And so, how it works for everybody, my new, our new co-host, but also an old friend as well, Corey, comes in and says, man, you got to do Unify. And I treat him the same way as Rick. I'm like, yeah. And Corey was like, nah, boo, you're not gonna. To me, I'm telling you, this is what it is. This is what it is. What's the problem that you have with it? Oh, I'll explain to you what my problem is. He's like, not a problem anymore. Not a thing. This is how we do it. Quit the bullshit. So I was like, all right, let's take a look. Let's get some equipment and let's start trying. So, I started watching a bunch of videos, and John is also watching a bunch of videos, and we're like, they can do this. They can do that. Hey, they got some integrated stuff together where I don't have to buy additional equipment. I can 3D print some parts. Very, very much like what I like, because, everyone knows I'm a big 3D printing enthusiast. So I was like, you know what? Let me go ahead and try it out. So for those of you who see this mess in the back there and these open boxes, as you see there, these are these Unify compact pieces and the APs that we're testing out. And I will tell you, we spent a couple hours this morning from adding certain pieces, and as it goes along, I'm highly impressed on how this whole Unify environment is. But again, it goes back into, and I think, and I'll let Corey kind of jump in here. But again, going toward these 5 steps, there are some things that you have to realize internally for yourself. Again, I mentioned the word bias. And sometimes I think a lot of us are in this position where we are flagging to the hole into the ground, and this is where this is the hill we're going to stay on. And sometimes it may be a disservice to not only to yourself internally, but also to your clients as well. And so I've learned that, I think the comment that John said earlier today is like, while everyone has been jumping on this wagon and has really been thriving, we've been in the 80s with what we've been using compared to the features that are out there. And it's that proverbial story of, I don't want to hear the salesman who's going to sell me a machine gun while I'm over here fighting with swords and shields, right? And so it goes to say, you may want to reevaluate certain things as we kind of go more and deeper of what is the best guide to have a better partnership and really understanding what you're trying to do moving forward. So, I'll toss it over to Corey real quick, because, he's the one that kind of challenged me, right? And being able to get into this whole environment. This is just, again, one example, and then we'll toss it over to Rick for I told you so. And now it takes someone new to go ahead and tell me something for me to listen, but we'll go from there.
Yeah, man. For me, man, I got no dog in this race, man, other than to see you successful and to share all the knowledge that we went through and know that you got a support and a group to really help you out in anywhere you want to be from that perspective. I don't get no commissions. I don't sell it. I don't resell it. I don't do anything, right? My whole goal is the purpose of this show is to make sure that you're growing and where it comes from and do it. Because sometimes we're our own worst enemy, man. We get stuck in the way that we want to get done. Kind of back to what you were saying, eliminate those processes that don't make any sense and make it stronger. That's what you have to get done. And sometimes what was working well, again, I need to take a step forward to figure out where it is, because what you're going to find out and what you're seeing is, man, there's a lot of things that's going to, save me money. There's some things I can upsell from a feature perspective. There's some things that I can do that's going to take me to that next level to be competitive in some places that I wasn't in the past, because I was more comfortable where it comes from and I can streamline it out. And again, the whole goal from that is to challenge. And what you'll notice, I always bring this up. If you notice behind me, man, the Rocky picture's down today and I got my boy up there, right? It's the lion. Mm-hmm. And I use this in a scenario is that the lion, as a CEO of a company and what we do, a lot of us feel like this dude right here. Nobody comes and hangs out with the lion, right? They think we're going to eat him up. They think we're going to chase him down. They think of where he's going to come from, right? But the whole purpose of that is that, we got to go out there and support the other lions that are out there and do some of the things that we want to get done so that we can make sure that we're pushing the business forward, man. Because, if it wasn't for the lionesses and the people that can deal with us up there, and that's that support team, the people who are on our team. But other than that, man, it's a lonely for that cat up there. Right? If I saw that dude walking at night, I wouldn't want to go hang out with him either. But the whole goal is for us to do that one thing, not to put pressure, not to think that, hey, I'm smarter than you, or not to think what you're doing is not right. But my goal is to get you to think about what you're doing. How can we better it? And know that I got your back to support you down that path and where it comes from. And that's what I think that this community is all about. And what we do here on the show is we're pushing you to think outside that box, because we're going to give you some things that you didn't think about, things that we didn't have happen, but also help you grow and build that revenue. That's why it was really big, man. That's why I really challenge you to say, hey, support the FI. Back up my man Rick over there. So I'm letting him go ahead and take it on home.
Yeah, Rick feeling like the redheaded stepchild. Been telling this dude for 8 years to do it. Corey come for a week and tell him. No, but it really is about, again, it goes back to what you guys are saying. This is why the community exists. And this is why, for all of us, when you listen and trust people or hear things from a different perspective, it can help you. I don't want to say see the light, but help you see it, see it differently and approach it differently. So this is exactly why the community exists and why everyone is always willing to share, their experience. And that doesn't necessarily mean that my experience is going to be your experience, right? I right. Love it. You may not, right? And so that's the every time you I don't want to say complain, but every time you made a comment about something going on with your previous vendor, I would bring it back to
Snap baby Arachnus.
Yeah. And I would bring it back to, hey, I don't have those problems. I haven't had that issue, right? But that's what worked for me. And I think, as we talk about, the topic of breaking up with your vendor, or just creating better partnerships, I think the whole thing needs to revolve around something Corey said too. It's about what is convenient is not the word, but what works for you and what works for your team that you can ultimately make work for your clients, right? So when I evaluate a vendor and where I'm going to go with it, whether I'm going to use them or not, and you guys always hear Paco making comments about me saying, hey, you try this, hey, you try that, because I always keep my ear open, right? I don't want to be switching every 3 months to a new vendor for something, but I do want to know what is out there. And I do want to know what maybe I'm missing by keeping my head buried in the sand with the vendor I'm using or the product I'm using, right? This happens a lot. We moved last year from one RMM PSA to another, which for the most part, I guess what happens is, and I'll maybe phrase it this way, you don't know you're missing things until you realize you're missing things, if that makes any sense, right? So when you see it done from a different perspective, or you're having a conversation with another MSP or in the group and someone's saying, they don't even mention what they use, but they say, oh, I'm doing X, Y, and Z, through my RMPSA. You're like, how the hell are you doing that? Because you're not used to doing it that way, right? So you're thinking, that doesn't exist, or I don't need it. Out of sight, out of mind, I guess is what the best way to say it is, right? So again, it goes back to what works for you. And then I want to flip this a bit, and then I'm going to push it back to Paco. What works for you is what works for you. So because Paco's whatever vendor or his product that he uses does X, Y, and Z that mine doesn't, maybe I don't need it, right? Maybe it doesn't work for us for whatever reason. Maybe for the clients we service or the way we service them. I don't know, whatever the reason may be. All that good is not necessarily gold for you. So I want everyone to keep that in mind as well. So when you're making these decisions about moving on from a vendor, and we always use the shiny object saying, we always say that, but what needs to happen all the time for all of us is you need to know what works for you, how you're gonna, and what in turn is going to work for your clients. And that's how I think we should evaluate every change. And but my final word is always be open that what you're doing now may have some better options out there for you.
Right. I mean, and it also goes into the fact of just trying to figure out, okay, you don't want to break up with your vendor, right? And you're trying to figure out, all right, what can I do to help salvage this, right? Is there a way that we can meet in the middle that's beneficial, that doesn't sacrifice the quality of your business, right? So, we're going through that right now where we're trying to figure out, all right, what's the best process? Because again, through these 5, make the requirements less dumb, but also let's delete the part or a process that it doesn't make sense, right? And how do we get to that point to really dive in and focus and really try to get into that piece? And so trying to go into that process is really something where, you don't have to necessarily say, all right, I'm gone and I'm leaving if you have a good relationship, right? But as Rick said, it does make sense to keep your mind open as well, because I'll tell you what, we were with a distributor for all of our cloud licensing, and we were pretty, it was a place to be. It was kind of where we were, right? And where we switched from. And so talking with an old friend who happened to move over to another vendor, now has been more helpful and more informative and more value driven than any of the other distributors in the past that we've worked with. And so it was a no-brainer for us to switch to. And then now we're finding a lot of success through theirs because there's opportunities we didn't even know were available. And so again, going through the community, going through the discussion of, how do you help with better partnerships? But the first step is really making sure that, are you talking to your vendor on a day-to-day basis? Are you talking to them consistently at least? And I'm not talking about something is broken. Are they reaching out to you to determine what's going on with your business? It doesn't necessarily mean, for example, hey, let's figure out what your goals are for 2025. And we have these SKUs to go ahead and sell you so that we can go ahead and make you work better. If you heard Marvin B's podcast from the IT Business Podcast 2 weeks ago, there was some choice words because some of those vendors just don't get it. But there are those that have taken the time to understand, what's going through. You both have built this relationship because you both want the best, because they understand investment in you means investment in their support as well. And as we've been proponents here for an MSP Unplugged, it is a two-way street. You cannot have a successful business and take without giving back. There's just no way. It just does not work that way. The vendor that's helping you has to get some type of relationship with you and support, or you get upset when they get acquired or they have to close down or they transition to another field because they went back to enterprise, whatever the case may be, because there wasn't that relationship that occurred. Now, obviously, there's some caveats to that, but that's what you see and what I have seen over the last several years because of that. But Corey, when it comes down to, we're talking on that topic of a guide to better partnerships. What are some things that come out to you on, hey, this is how I know that I have a partner versus a vendor relationship with what I'm using?
Yeah, I think it comes down to is you have to be the ownership and don't expect them to be in charge and care that to be the forefront leader of them running your business and what you need from that perspective. You're going to have to drive that. You set the direction and what you need and where you need to go. And their job is to go figure out the resources and knock down those pillars to get you there. Right. But if you go into that relationship and says, hey, man, they know that I'm going to be trying to grow to 100 customers. How they know that? You didn't tell them. They know that I'm trying to implement this next thing. And this is what my next marketing campaign. How do they know? They don't know that. With the other 700 MSPs that are trying to work with as well, not saying that you're not valuable, they don't know that. So this is one of those situations where the squeaky wheel needs to be you so that you get as much grease as you possibly can. And unfortunately, I'm going to say you have to be selfish and say, yep, I'm glad Paco's there and I'm glad Rick's there and I'm glad everybody else is there. But guess what? I am the only partner when I come and talk to that situation. And I hope Rick is talking to the same partner I'm talking to and says, yeah, I'm glad I know you got Corey, but I'm your only partner. And this is what matters to me. Right.
Right.
That's the kind of the mentality that you have to get, is that treat them as I'm your only partner. This is what I need. And their job is to help you go down that path to get better, to do that. But then this is one key piece. Ask your partner, what is his or her goals for you that the company has put on them? Right? That's going to help you figure out is, okay, am I only going to get that call on the last 2 days of the month?
Right.
And if I'm getting those calls, where it comes from. So those are the pieces where you understand each other of how you build that relationship. Because if you know what their goals is on you from the company to make you grow, then there's no misunderstanding when they come and say, hey, man, we need to change you to a multi-year contract. Well, you should already know that's coming. Right.
Right.
Because that's where they're shifting. Hey, man, we need to be looking at some new stuff that we need to push out because I need you to have more attach rate to whatever it is. Well, okay, because I need you to sell more, to become more sticky, like we were just talking about. They're doing the same thing, and not get all caught up in your feelings when they come at you with those things like, oh, I can't believe, I sell backup. You come at me with cybersecurity. What you talking about? What is that about? I already got a vendor. Well, you got to have those conversations. And I think those are the key pieces that in that relationship, you got to go back and forth and understand what their goals are for you and what goals is on them for you. And then you need to make sure you set solid goals for them as your partner. Tell them where you want to grow, how you want to grow, and what you need from them to help you get there. And I think that will make a better relationship. And sometimes they don't line up. And if they don't, y'all can talk through it and y'all can agree to disagree and go to your separate ways. But there also may be a time where that product or that partner just don't fit. And you should not try to stick that square peg in that round hole. And you should be okay with that. Y'all both should be okay with that.
Yeah. I mean, I think for, like you said, if your rep is calling you, like if that vendor has a new feature come out and you haven't heard from them since you signed up, and they reach out to you saying, hey, we'd love to get some time in your things and let's talk about your business, and hey, talk about this new feature or whatever, you reply right back to them and say, hit me up in a couple months when you care about my business. But no, I mean, that's, I'm a little bit more direct on some of the stuff that I say to my vendors. Cause like, there are reps that get it right and understand, and I've worked with them. And there are some that I've specifically have asked for new reps because they're doing it wrong. Right. And that's an education piece for, and I just have the luxury of knowing who is certain people in certain businesses that I work with as partners, and say, hey, man, talk to your mans, because he's not understanding how the culture is working on your business and how to explain that for you. But also, I will say there are two versions of a rep talking to you about certain things. The one is, hey, great relationship. We're starting a relationship. Here's our portfolio. Is there any interest in talking about any of these? No, I'm actually good with what I have. Let's not worry about it. And then as conversations move forward, It's not a, hey, have you looked at DNS yet? Hey, have you whatever? Because you've already had that conversation that it's already been taken care of. And with the constant conversation, you both, as Corey said, should know if something's coming or something's of dislike. You should be able to hit on those parts and then talk a little bit more. Now, obviously, top down, if you got to talk to about something, that's, you can't avoid that. But, you can have those conversations in the right way. Then there's the ones where you explain these type of things to, and then they totally ignore on what the problem is and go from there. And I'll give you a quick story, and now I'm going to go ahead and toss it over to Rick to see kind of his feelings on this whole discussions with reps and partnerships as such as well. There was a product that I had trialed many years ago, and I was interested in possibly trialing them again. But inside of the system, when I logged in, it says you have to add your credit card to extend a month. So I talked to support and said, hey, is there any chance I can extend my trial? They said, you got to speak with your account manager first, and then they can let you know if you do the trial or not. Now, mind you, when I tried to sign up for a trial, it said I had an account already that existed, so I could not extend my trial to review this product. So I jump on with this rep. Appreciate him jumping on at 8 a.m. when it was 6 a.m. for him. It was the week of New Year's Eve, so definitely could have been doing many other things, right? But we were trying to set up our stuff for the new year. And he scheduled 15 minutes on my calendar. 30 minutes in on a demo that I was nice enough to let him go through, 3 points of that conversation was, I understand. I've seen all this before. I know how to set up certain things that is generic across all of these type of software. I just want to know, can I extend my trial? And you let me know about the product that I'm interested in. We went 30 minutes, did not talk about the features I was interested in, ran through his whole boilerplate situation, finally had to cut him off at 30 minutes and says, look, you scheduled me for 15 minutes. I was nice enough to get to 30. You haven't even talked about what I wanted to talk about. And I'm trying to see if I can extend my trial or not. The conversation was, he ran over it for 5 minutes of what I cared about and then said, yeah, just go on the website and sign up for the trial. Well, I just explained to you 3 times prior to that I could not. So do you want me to just sign up with a new email address? Do I just add the credit card to just pay for the month? What do you want me to do? And he's like, oh, you know what? Don't worry about it. I'll just do it on my end to extend your trial. So you wasted my time for 35 minutes. I gave you 15 minutes extra, didn't talk about what I asked you about, and you go from there. So because of that experience, I did not sign up with that vendor. I just so happen to know there's 2 brothers that created this product. I told the one brother, say, hey, let your brother know that this guy right here is the reason why I didn't sign up with your company, because pure awful listening skills on what I directly told him I wanted, and he just was on a different plane than I was. So maybe it was the 6 a.m. wake-up call, maybe it was whatever, but I thought it was clear multiple times throughout that conversation, to the point where I had to be very direct with him at the end to get what I want, and even then, it was a waste of 30 minutes. So anyway, that's my story for there, Mr. Smith. Any
that just reminds me of everything we have to learn, right? Are you listening to talk, or are you listening to answer the actual problem that a client is telling you that they have, right? And obviously you encountered somebody who just was listening to you so that he can talk and tell you what he had, right, and not necessarily caring about what you wanted. And I always look at it this way: when we deal with our vendors, we should want them to treat us exactly the way we say we want to treat our clients, right? Mm-hmm. So I figured, there's 3 things that has to work in order for a good relationship to happen, right? First and foremost, when I need support, it needs to be there, right? You need to be able to help me, right? Secondly, you need to be able to add value to what I'm doing. This goes back to what you guys were talking about a little bit earlier. We're not just talking about the product itself, but we're talking about how that can impact the business, right? Not just, oh, we have all these features. Don't sell features, sell benefits. The same things we tell, right, we do, right? We don't want to sell, oh, we're going to give you Huntress because it's going to protect your network. The client doesn't care what the hell Huntress is, right? They want to know they're going to be protected. It's the same thing we want to know we may be a little bit more technical in our questioning, but still we want to know what the benefits are. And the last thing is it has to fit for you, right? So, because sometimes we hear what we want. We do it too. We have selective hearing. We hear what we want to hear and ignore all of the other things, right? We ignore the red flags and we go ahead with something because we want to. And then later on, we realize it's not really a good fit for us. And that's okay. But I think, again, it goes back to we need our vendors. We need to expect from our vendors and demand from our vendors the same treatment that we say we want to give our customers, right? The same treatment that our clients should demand of us. And that is that active listening, that, again, be there when I need you, add value to what you're doing, and be relevant. What you're doing needs to be relevant to what you're offering me needs to be relevant to my business. And I think we have to, when that chain is broken between a relationship between you and your vendor, then it's probably not going to be a healthy relationship going forward. Now, I'm going to say this part. Everyone's human, right? We're all human. We all make mistakes. What happened with the vendor you spoke, with the salesperson you spoke to, Paco, may not be a representation of what the company represents. He may be an outlier. That
100%.
That may or may not be true. But we have to be willing to go back and say, hey, I think that the greatest part of any relationship is to go back and say, hey, you're screwing up, or I expected this from you. You didn't give it to me. And then that person say, hey, you know what? I get it. I understand. Let's see how we can rectify the situation, rather than saying, oh, but this is what we do. And this is what we told you. And it's that argument of, we're not doing anything wrong. You're just not getting it. Right. Mm-hmm. And so it is that relationship. Again, it all comes back down to relationships, because sometimes we'll take a more expensive product or more, let's say, less advanced product if we really believe in that vendor, if we really believe that vendor will deliver for us what we need, right? So I think it's that same relationship we want to have with our clients is that relationship we should strive for with our vendors. And if they can't deliver that, whether for whatever reason, they're probably not a good fit for us. And that may not even be a reflection on their product itself. But again, you can have the greatest product in the world, and if I can't use it, or if something's wrong and you can't help me fix it, it means nothing to me.
Right.
So that's just, that's where I go with that when we look at, what makes sense for us to in our relationships with vendors.
Man, look at y'all brothers taking everybody to church, but I get it. Paco, I asked you a question on that same vendor, man, is that when you talk to the brother and you still didn't do it, what did they do to make it right? What did they do to say, yeah, we got that, the guy that didn't follow what it is, let me figure out what we need to do to make it right? Or did they say, yeah, okay, cool, and thank you for the call, deuces? What did they do?
So they basically did went back and kind of have the conversation, but I was at the point where I was like, I'm out. I already settled with what I'm gonna have, because I don't got time to like wait around, right? But like, for those that go into recon mode and damage control and trying to solve it, I'll give them credit, right, to be able to do what they have to do. And he really didn't have to go through that, because I just know him on a good rapport level. I don't believe he's involved with that company as much anymore. I just know that his brother runs it, and so there was kind of one of those where it was like he gave the word, he'll see what he could do. What did I want? He can, the ultimate goal was like, hey, what do you want to do? And I was like, well, I'm out, but I just wanted to give you that feedback. Okay, well, if there's anything we can figure out, I'll let you know. And that's how it kind of, like, there was care into that relationship, which is what you expect, right? But just wasn't a good day for them that day.
I think what you did there was cool. And the reason why I brought that up is because, a lot of the reason why we do what we do, we're out in the channel, we go out and meet people from that perspective, is that you had access to be able to go out there and change the direction of that, how that ultimately wants to go down that path, right? If you wasn't doing what you were doing, you didn't have access, you wouldn't had a brother to call, and they would have kept making the same mistake as they go down that path and go on the next one. Hopefully they learn from that perspective. And so that's why I believe in this whole relationship, it's proper to give feedback than versus just leaving, right? Very religious guy. So it's kind of like church, man. People leave church and nobody know where they went. Oh my God, I ain't seen Rick in like 6 years and he been gone. but nobody comes and says why or how I left or what was the reason, so I
Right.
can go back and figure it out. And we have that same conversation with our clients. So if you decide to leave a vendor or decide to do something and you have a relationship and they don't know that it's coming, or they just say, oh my God, you went from, billing at, $6,000 a month to zero. Then you didn't really give them the relationship, right? It's the same thing you complain about with your
True.
customers. Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they just left me. I don't know why they left me. Now, you're like, I don't know what happened. And you don't know what to go fix, right? You don't know what to go do. So again, I go back to what Rick said, you got to treat them like you want your customers to treat you, right? Think about what happens when a customer decides to leave or looking for somebody else or whatever it is. You're like, man, why didn't they call me and tell me that they didn't like the fact that the pop-up was popping up? Why didn't they just tell me that they were looking at AI? Or why didn't they just tell me they were, they didn't like my text calling every 3 days and not following up? And why didn't you tell me that, right? You want that same conversation. I'm having problems with your support. I'm having some problem with marketing. I'm not getting the things I need. I feel that the product is, every night I'm getting a new maintenance update, right? That's just not happening with me. Now that I got to that point and they're not doing anything about it, at that point in time, they're making a decision for you that it's time to look elsewhere.
Right.
And I
think it's one. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I think one of the important things to do, given what Corey just said, right? We need to, I'm speaking as an MSP, but the vendors need to do the same thing. There needs to be check-ins. There needs to be conversations, right? Because a lot of times that, oh my God, why is he leaving? Or that decision to leave, and you haven't discussed it with your vendor, or you haven't discussed it with your whatever, whoever you haven't discussed it with, to give them the opportunity to fix it. Sometimes relationships or sometimes things are beyond repair, right? And that can just be the case. But the same way, if you should know, I think personally, for us as MSPs, I'll speak from that perspective, you should know when a customer is not happy. It should not be a surprise if you get a a request from another MSP for this customer's passwords and everything because that customer's leaving. You shouldn't be surprised. There should be no way. There should be some sort of check-in with that customer to know. And sometimes, and I think we talked about this in the past. Sometimes they won't say it directly what their issues are, but they tell you that they are not happy. And we have to, again, be actively listening to what they say and what they do. The patterns that break when they break the norms, things like that. You need to know and be aware so that you can possibly, if you want to, salvage a relationship. And like I say, I don't think it should ever be a surprise if a client is leaving. It shouldn't be a surprise to a vendor if an MSP is leaving, because if there's that continuous line of communication, somewhere along the line, if we're listening, we heard them tell us, these are some issues that I'm having. And if they've told you more than once, it's really an issue.
For sure, man. That's it. That need to put that on a t-shirt. Bumper sticker or something, right? That's the truth right there.
I'll throw one little piece to what Rick said, and then I think we'll go ahead and round out this show. Is, Rick mentioned a lot of great points of listening and making sure you hear what your clients are saying. But I will say that it's even more important to hear what they're not saying. And so if you have not heard from your client in so long and they were vocal, or if you have not even touched base with your clients, even if at an annual basis at the least, because we're all busy, but you have to somehow talk to your clients, right? And so if you don't get those check-ins, if they don't hear from you, out of sight, out of mind. And so if you see this transition, you rather hear them complain that there's a bunch of stuff going on to them just going silent. I remember there was a vendor that I was very adamant and we just had a lot of problems. Everyone was fine internally with the company. I just kept having issues with my own setup. And it was on and on and on, to finally I just gave up and I said, if the owner can't connect and do his own things with stuff, how am I going to be able to do anything? Just, it's a wash. So we ended up switching. And so I just told him, close the ticket. Didn't tell them it was solved, didn't tell them whatever. And so when I put in my cancellation, I think it was like 30 to 60 days later, the reply was it the technical issues? So they already knew at that point. And so that was where you did it right. If they're, hey, what happened? What are we going on? I thought everything was great. Now it's a big piece of that. So again, as you both have said, if you leave your vendor high and dry, that's on you for not communicating to help solve the issue. You're just incurring the pain of transitioning, the wasted burden rate in dollars to make the switch versus trying to see what's going on. And sometimes you get heated. Like there's a vendor right now that we're trying to figure out our own life with right now. And I made some harsh decisions right up before the call, talking with you two. It was like, well, let's figure this all out real quick because, it was a rough year for you last year. You want to put through all that again? So, that's kind of what is the point of the community. It's the point of understanding that there is a way to do this. Not the only way, but this is one way of our perspectives of what we have here. And hopefully you get a little bit better output on what you're doing with your vendors. And I'll leave you with every vendor may check the box, but not every vendor will send you checks to your mailbox. And so that's from our good friend, Juan Fernandez. And with that, I will go ahead and sign off unless any of you have anything else you wanted to sign off with for real quick.
Yeah, for me, man, I think the final thing I would say is that, the channel it's large, but it is extremely small.
Mm-hmm.
And so what that means as well, man, is that you don't want to be that MSP, man, that these guys chat just like we do, and they sit down and say, man, yeah, they don't ever sign up with those guys. And you wonder why I'm not getting a call back or why I'm not from that perspective. So that's why it's big to build that relationship, man, is you just want to be straight up and honest, because how many times you go to a show and be like, yeah, man, I see James over there. You was at X yesterday, but now you're over at Y. And that's how it works.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to make sure that you continue to have those conversations, man. But the relationship is big. It's almost to a point where it seems like it's overused, but it's a true deal. It is a true deal to build a relationship. So you definitely got to work on that piece.
Yep, absolutely. Mr. Smith, anything to add on? Kudos.
No, I think we've covered it all. And I just again, I'll just say this: check in with your vendors, check in with your customers. Right, the same way. And again, I'll just emphasize that you want the same relationship that you want with your customers, whatever that ideal relationship is. You should strive for that same relationship with your vendors. And if you've tried and they're not giving it to you for whatever reason, then maybe they're not for you. Because again, just as much as clients have to be a cultural fit for your business, we always say, we'll look at we'll see if we're a good fit for each other. A vendor has to be a good fit for you as well. And I don't want to say this to come out the wrong way, because I don't encourage anyone to keep switching vendors, but no vendor should be expendable. Or it should be unexpendable, right? Or, you should be able to, because there's more than one person who does what they do, right? So you should be able to find that right one that fits what you're looking for, that fits your niche, fits your way of doing business. And they may be smaller, they may be bigger, they may be cheaper, they may be less expensive, more expensive, excuse me. But whatever that is, when they're a good fit for you and they hit those 3 principles that we talked about earlier, I honestly think then that's where you go. And then you try to keep those lines of communications open to help you better your relationship and better your business. Leave it there.
Yep. So with that, we'll leave you with these 5 pillars steps again. Make requirements less dumb. Delete the part of process step. Optimize. Accelerate. And most importantly, automate as you can. We thank you for listening in here today. If you like what you hear, tune in every week. We usually come out on Tuesdays. Tuesdays, right, Rick? Is that still
Tuesdays, sir?
Tuesdays every week. If you want to watch the video podcast, you can head over to youtube.com/MSP Unplugged. Like, subscribe, hit that notification button to be notified whenever a new episode is available. We see a lot of increased viewership and subscriptions, so we appreciate you all tuning in for the first time. We hope that we're providing you that value that you are looking for you to give us that subscribe. Also, for those of you that listen to us on the go, we're on your favorite podcatcher apps. For those that are watching us, we're on Amazon Music, Spotify, and also on Apple Podcast as well. We got some big things coming up for TechCon Unplugged. Just you wait. Yes, we got some announcements coming up soon, so stay tuned. We got some good things coming up here But until then, we want to again thank you for listening, and we will see you next time on MSP Unplugged.